Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're gonna be reacting to
What Germany's elections means for Europe. So yesterday we did a video, Germany's elections explained, I believe. They explained who won, but I didn't understand it. Like, I don't know what that
no.
means to nobody.
As in,
Yeah, like they explained the parties that won, cute, but
I like the red, yellow, green.
oh,
This
the
traffic
traffic light
light.
coalition from
Yeah,
previous, yeah,
that
that
was
was
cool.
cool. But let's hope this video gets into more details of what's gonna happen now,
Okay.
because that's what matters.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant. On Sunday, Germany went to the polls to elect their federal government. As expected, the election was
That's what
won
it
by the
looks like.
centre-right Christian Democrats.
The polls?
Mhm.
Yeah, what did it look like here?
Here is different. Here, well, I guess it depends where you go. It's like you don't have like one. That look like just one table, and that look like just for a picture, like a photo
Oh.
op. But for ours, it's like a lot of little stations and together, and you have to kind of like cover your answers.
Oh, it's not like a booth?
Yeah, it's a booth,
Oh.
but this one it looked like there was only one like this. Like we would have many of these. Like this is a person who checks you in, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go to like little booths.
Uh, how I remember my parents were, I do remember the
Mm-hmm.
booths. I don't remember
Mm-hmm.
how many
It'll be a
people
lot,
were.
a
I don't,
lot.
for us, I don't think it was a lot because it was like,
Mm-hmm.
per municipality, per small town. So there's not that many
Mm-hmm.
people voting.
But now I like the male Senate. Oof.
Which means that their leader Friedrich Merz will be the next Chancellor of Germany. So in this video, we thought we'd take a look at what Merz means for Europe and for the EU, and how he might mark a change from his predecessor Olaf Scholz. Explore which World Leadcast YouTube channel or in your arguably the best conceivable result for Merz and the Christian Democrats. While the Christian Democrats had been ahead in the polls for quite some time, there were always two big open questions. First, whether they could protect their leader against the AfD, and second, whether they could win big enough to form a two-party coalition rather than a three-party coalition. Two-party coalitions have long been the norm in post-war German politics, but at the last election in 2021, the SPD, the Greens, and the FDP decided to form a three-party coalition. As we've explained in previous
Traffic
videos,
light
this
coalition.
didn't work out well for them, and Merz has since made it clear that he would much prefer a simpler two-party grand coalition with the SPD, which is what Angela Merkel had for most of her
That's so
time in power.
interesting.
Anyway,
Because in Europe they like to have multiple, parties. Here they're saying it's just let's keep it simple with two.
Well, two as a leadership, like the
Mhm.
majority,
Mhm.
and then the other parties, they're like the minority. So I think the principles are similar. Like here, they can kind of like rally and vote on, certain issues. You can like steal votes from the other part,
Yeah,
but
it's quite hard to do with three. Like,
yeah, three, you have to like three different views have to agree on one. That's
yeah.
a little hard.
Anyway, the answer to both of these questions ended up being yes. The AfD underperformed the more optimistic pre-election polls, and the Christian Democrats and the SPD won enough seats
Okay, we
between
saw
them
all
to form
this
a simple
already.
two-party
Get to the
coalition,
point.
in large part because both the FDP and the new Sarah Wagenknecht alliance fell just under the 5% vote threshold, and so received no seats in the Bundestag. Anyway, this is important for Europe for two reasons. First, the magnitude of Merz's success, plus the fact that the SPD had their worst result since 1887, means that Merz will be very much the dominant player in the coalition. And second, the fact that he only has to negotiate with the SPD and not some other third party means he's unlikely to have to make too many concessions or end up stuck in a coalitional deadlock like Scholz did. So what actually are Merz's plans for Europe? Well, the most pressing question at the moment surrounds Merz's foreign policy, especially when it comes to the US and Ukraine.
Oh, he's tall.
While Merz was
Well,
relatively
either he's tall or Zelensky's short. I think Zelensky might be short because I've
Mm.
seen pictures of him with other leaders. He's always shorter than everyone.
measured about this during the campaign, the gloves came off once he'd won. At a roundtable immediately after the election, he said that US interventions in the German election, a clear reference to the Trump administration's active support for the AfD, were, quote, more outrageous than the interventions we have seen from Moscow.
Wow. So remember last week when we did the videos about Trump, not Trump, what's the president? Not Pence, Vance,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was in Germany doing the speeches, so they were trying to affect the elections
Mm.
there. I guess I didn't know the election was happening, so I didn't connect the dots.
Mm.
Wow, that's wild.
I think oftentimes I would think that's a strategy.
But
That you would think.
but that's not their place though.
Yeah, but naturally, if you have like a foreign country come in, they're gonna, have their attitudes how things should be done to kind of nudge or influence. Okay, this is what you guys should do too, because we're supposed to be allies.
Delay after the election, the meeting. I don't know.
I'm not surprised. And I don't
That's
think it's unique.
that's fucked up though. That they try to like influence their
Mm.
elections.
I can see that if
I mean,
the
obviously it
if the
happens though.
if the
Yeah.
president travels to your country, they don't come to just eat your
Wow.
food. They don't come as a tourist. They
I
come for
mean,
business.
some food looks good. He might come to eat.
And called for, quote, independence from the US. This is astonishing in and of itself, not least because Merz used to be a committed Atlanticist, but it's also incredibly important from a European perspective because it means that the two biggest countries in the EU, France and Germany, are now singing from the same hymn sheet. French
Because I don't
President
think
Emmanuel
we've seen Vladimir go to Germany.
Oh no, the enemies. They're not like not like enemies, but they're not on good terms. So
Mm-mm.
that wouldn't
But if
happen.
he does, either way, if he come in peace or in with revenge or bad attitudes, is to influence.
I think the difference is with the Vladimir is that he would come. They would know the intent of him if he were to do that. With Trump, I guess they didn't expect that, and they kind of felt blindsided a little bit, maybe.
Oh, you don't know
Macron
the
has
man?
long called for Europe to become more independent of the US, using the buzzword of strategic autonomy. But Olaf Scholz was always somewhat skeptical, which created a fair bit of tension with Macron. That Macron and Merz are apparently on the same page here makes it far more likely that the
You know
EU.
what I notice? Every time you see Trump and he does those meetings, he makes sure he stand in a position of power. Like, for instance, who enters the through the door first, where he puts his hand placement. After something is said, he
Mhm.
makes sure to exert that he's the dominant to kind of show his influence, you
Mhm.
know? So I feel like this shouldn't be a surprise.
really will pivot away from the US in the next few years. As part of this, last week, Merz suggested that the EU should begin discussions with the UK and France on nuclear sharing, or creating some sort of European nuclear umbrella. Similarly, Merz will also be a more hawkish supporter of Ukraine than his predecessor. Merz has signalled he would be open to sending Taurus missiles to Kyiv, something that Scholz has long opposed, and that he would accept raising NATO's spending target above 2% of GDP.
Oh wow.
The issue here for Merz is that it's not clear how he'd fund any dramatic increase in defence spending. The so-called debt break,
So
which
is he this on the same page with Trump? Do you agree?
In that aspect, yeah, it seems like it. Yeah.
limits Germany's deficit to just 0.35% of GDP, means he can't borrow more to fund it, and the German economy doesn't look strong enough to bear more austerity or tax hikes. Merz signalled an openness to reforming the debt brake during the campaign, but because it's constitutionally enshrined, this would require a two-thirds majority in the Bundestag. This might be difficult, given that the AfD and the Left Party together have more than a third of seats, and will probably oppose any increases in borrowing to fund further support for Ukraine. Anyway, another EU issue that Merz will have a real impact on is immigration. Merz has taken a pretty hard line against immigration domestically, but has also criticised the EU's immigration policies. He's described the EU's Dublin framework, which determines which EU country is responsible for processing an asylum application, as dysfunctional, and vowed to close Germany's borders on the first day of his tenure, effectively suspending
Wow.
the EU.
So also similar viewpoint as Trump, though.
Mm.
And I guess kind of in the sense him saying that we need to stop relying on America is also kind of like Trump, because Trump is also saying not that we need. I wouldn't say America relies on Europe, but Trump is saying we need to focus on us. We need to stop focusing on others. So it's kind of similar viewpoints, I guess.
Schengen Agreement.
It's just that I feel like with Germany, they want that to be perceived like, okay, this is them decide, not another government influencing their decision making.
Merz's position on Schengen will be particularly disruptive. Schengen has come under increasing pressure recently as migration skeptic governments have introduced more and more border controls. But as the largest recipient of asylum seekers, Germany closing its borders will both encourage others to follow suit and create real crises for its neighbours, who will suddenly have to deal with a significant increase in irregular immigration.
I wonder, this border closing, does it affect tourism or only for like asylum borders? Like for example, like if you wanna go visit Berlin like as a tourist, does that mean you can't anymore, or like you need a visa from other European countries?
I think so.
Or does it just mean that you can still drive through how it used to be, just if you
It's
seek
like visas.
asylum, if you seek asylum, there's just no, we don't give out asylums.
Merz has also expressed support for migrant offshoring plans. He even flirted with using facilities built by the UK government for their controversial Rwanda scheme, which is something other EU states like Italy are trying to implement, and could perhaps now be done at the EU level. When it comes
That's
to
so interesting to just ship immigrants on like a random country like Rwanda. I mean,
Germany said they want autonomy, and Rwanda they have a say in that.
no, but if Rwanda agrees to accept them, I mean, is that wrong? I guess.
I
'Cause
guess, but
the-
then the people.
Yeah, but let's be real. The people came not to be in their countries is for asylum, right? They didn't come for Germany. Like idealist, like in theory, they didn't come to Germany for Germany. They came to Germany to escape their condition. So Rwanda is still escaping their condition, because I'm sure they would love to stay in Germany, you know, because it's richer country, whatever, better opportunities. But beggars can't be choosers. If you're truly running to escape from persecution, you're gonna go anywhere but that country. So I think on that level, it's not necessarily wrong.
Green politics, Merz's coalition will be less green than its predecessor. While Merz has pledged to continue investment in renewables, where green policies come into conflict with economic growth, Merz has vowed to prioritise growth. This will put further pressure on the European Commission's Green Deal, which has already been watered down somewhat, and more aligns Merz with the farmers' movement in Europe. Merz has also taken a warmer tone towards nuclear energy, and while Germany is unlikely to restart its own reactors at this point, this is still important at the EU level, because Merz is more likely to sign off on EU support for nuclear power, which Scholz resisted. The final thing we thought we'd mention is Merz's position on joint EU borrowing, which has become a hot topic in Brussels recently, both because the EU now needs to decide how to pay off the 300 billion euros it borrowed during the pandemic and to fund support for Ukraine without the US. Now, instinctively, you might assume that Merz would resist this, as Christian Democrats have in the past. However, perhaps because he realises that it will be easier than reforming the debt brake, at the Munich Security Conference, Merz signalled he might be open to further joint borrowing to fund support for Ukraine, again putting him very much on the same page as Macron. All in all, Merz is probably good for Europe.
Macron has an
Whatever you think
ally
of his
now.
politics, having a German chancellor
Seems like this was a good outcome for Europe in a sense that there's going to be more unity between two of the most powerful countries, I think.
who isn't hamstrung by coalitional infighting will give the EU more agency, especially given how much Merz and Macron apparently agree on. Now, the thing is, often in politics, we need to understand a wide variety of topics to truly.
And that's so cute.
Okay. Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.